The jewelry store was buzzing with customers, the glass cases sparkling under the bright lights. Behind the counter, a young clerk, polished, confident, and a little too sure of himself, smirked as he helped well-dressed clients. He had a habit of judging people by their appearance, and today was no different. An elderly woman walked in, her clothes simple, her shoes worn. She moved slowly, her hands slightly trembling as she peered at the expensive necklaces and rings. The clerk barely glanced at her before turning back to his more important customers. When she finally approached the counter, he gave her a dismissive smile. "Can I help you with something affordable?" he asked, his tone dripping with condescension. The woman didn't react to his rudeness. Instead, she pointed at a locked display case. "I'd like to see that one, please." The clerk barely held back a laugh. The piece she was pointing at cost more than a luxury car. "Ma'am, that's a high-end item. Maybe you'd prefer something from the discount section?" She simply looked at him, her expression unreadable. "I'd like to see it." Sighing, the clerk reluctantly unlocked the case, sliding the jewelry toward her with exaggerated care, as if she might break it just by touching it. The woman examined it closely, then nodded. "I'll take it." The clerk blinked. "Ma'am, this is..." Before he could finish, the office door at the back of the store swung open. The store manager rushed out, his face pale. "What are you doing?" he hissed at the clerk. Then, turning to the elderly woman, he bowed his head slightly. "Ma'am, I'm so sorry for the wait. Your car is ready outside." The clerk's mouth fell open. The woman handed the jewelry back to him without a word, then walked toward the office, his boss's office, and unlocked the door with a key from her pocket. The manager turned to the stunned clerk, his voice low and furious. "That's the owner." The clerk's stomach dropped. He had just insulted the woman who signed his paychecks. And she hadn't even raised her voice. The clerk stood frozen, his face burning with humiliation. The other customers had stopped browsing, their eyes flickering between him and the elderly woman, no, the owner, as she disappeared into the office. The manager shot him a glare that said, "You're finished," before hurrying after her. His mind raced. How could he have been so blind? The quiet confidence in her walk, the way she studied the jewelry, not with longing, but with a practiced eye. None of it matched the helpless old lady image he'd assumed. Now, his stomach twisted as he realized his mistake. Inside the office, the owner settled into her chair, her expression unreadable. The manager stood stiffly, his fingers tapping nervously against his leg. I deeply apologize for his behavior," he stammered. "He's still new, but that's no excuse." She didn't respond right away, her gaze drifting to the security monitor showing the sales floor. The clerk was still rooted in place, his usual smugness replaced with panic. "How long has he worked here?" she finally asked. 3 months. She leaned forward, resting her hands on the desk. "And in 3 months, did no one notice how he treats people?" The manager hesitated. The truth was, he had noticed, the clerk's habit of ignoring customers who didn't look wealthy, the way he rushed through helping them. But because his sales numbers were decent, he'd let it slide. Now, he regretted that choice. Outside, the clerk wiped his sweaty palms on his pants. The other employees avoided looking at him, but he could feel their judgment. A few customers whispered to each other, some shaking their heads. His chest tightened. This wasn't just about losing his job. It was about everyone seeing him for what he really was. Then, the office door opened. The manager stepped out, his face grim. He motioned for the clerk to come inside. Every step toward that door felt like walking to his own execution. The clerk's legs felt like lead as he stepped into the office. The door clicked shut behind him, sealing him in with the woman he'd just mocked minutes earlier. The air was thick with tension, and his throat went dry. The owner sat calmly behind the large oak desk, her wrinkled hands folded in front of her. She didn't glare at him. She didn't raise her voice. She just watched him. And somehow, that was worse. The manager stood stiffly near the door, arms crossed, his jaw clenched. The clerk opened his mouth to apologize, but the owner raised a single finger, stopping him before he could speak. "Young man," she said, her voice steady but firm, "do you know why this store has been successful for 40 years? He swallowed hard. Because of the quality of the jewelry? She shook her head. No. Because of the people who walk through that door, all of them. The woman who saves for years to buy her daughter's first necklace. The old man who wants one last gift for his wife. The couple buying rings they can barely afford." She leaned forward slightly. "You treated them like inconveniences." "Why?" His face burned. He wanted to argue, to say he was just doing his job efficiently, but the words died in his throat. Deep down, he knew the truth. He'd assumed he could tell who mattered just by looking at them. The manager cleared his throat. "We'll process his termination immediately." The clerk's stomach dropped. He needed this job, rent was due next week. But before he could plead, the owner spoke again. "Wait." She studied him for a long moment, then sighed. "I won't fire you." The clerk's head snapped up in shock. Even the manager looked surprised. "But," she continued, "you'll spend the next month working in the stockroom. Unpacking shipments. Cleaning display cases. And most importantly, watching. See how the other employees treat customers. Learn what you missed." It wasn't forgiveness. It was a test. The clerk nodded quickly. I won't let you down." The owner's gaze didn't waver. "Prove it." As he stepped back onto the sales floor, the other staff eyed him warily. The customers had no idea what just happened, but he knew. And for the first time, he wondered what else he'd been wrong about. The stockroom was nothing like the gleaming sales floor. Cardboard boxes were stacked haphazardly against concrete walls, and the air smelled of dust and packing tape. The clerk, now dressed in a plain uniform instead of his tailored vest, rolled up his sleeves as the warehouse supervisor handed him a clipboard. "First rule," the supervisor said, not unkindly. "You don't touch the jewelry. You unpack, you log, you call a sales associate. Understood?" The clerk nodded, gripping the clipboard tightly. Just yesterday, he'd been the one giving orders to stockroom staff. Now, he was one of them. Hour 1. His fingers fumbled with the box cutter as he opened his first shipment. A delivery of delicate silver bracelets. He carefully counted each one, double-checking the inventory sheet. Sweat beaded on his forehead, one scratch, one miscount, and he'd prove the owner right about him. Across the room, 2 stockroom employees chatted while they worked. "Heard he laughed at Mrs. Badia last week because she asked to see payment plans," one muttered in Tamil. The clerk froze. He didn't speak the language, but the disdain in their tone needed no translation. His face burned. Had the entire staff known what he was like? Hour 3. His lower back ached from crouching over boxes. As he hauled a crate of cleaning supplies across the floor, he passed the sales floor windows. Through the glass, he saw the youngest sales associate, a shy woman he'd once mocked for being too nervous with clients, gently helping an elderly man try on watches. She didn't rush him. Didn't glance at his worn shoes. Just listened. The clerk looked away, guilt sour in his throat. Lunch break. He ate alone in the break room, picking at a sandwich. The sales team's laughter from the next table stung. Then, a tray clattered down across from him. The warehouse supervisor sat down, sliding a steaming cup of chai toward him. First day's always the hardest. The clerk stared at the cup. "You don't have to be nice." "I'm not." The supervisor shrugged. But the owner believes in second chances. So we do too. For the first time that day, the knot in his chest loosened slightly. Closing time. As he mopped the stockroom floor, the owner appeared in the doorway. She didn't speak, just observed his blistered hands and the perfectly organized shelves behind him. He straightened up, bracing for criticism. Instead, she nodded once. Tomorrow, you'll shadow Rajesh on deliveries. Some of our best clients don't come to the store. As she walked away, the clerk realized, this wasn't just punishment. It was a lesson. The delivery van smelled of lemon polish and old leather. The clerk, now in a driver's uniform, clutched a velvet-lined case containing a pearl necklace worth more than his yearly salary. Beside him, Rajesh adjusted the GPS. First stop, Malabar Hill, Rajesh said. Mrs. Kapoor. She's been our client since before you were born. The clerk's palms grew damp. Malabar Hill meant old money, the kind that didn't flaunt wealth. The kind he'd never bothered to learn how to recognize. The Kapoor residence. The apartment building's lobby had fading Art Deco tiles and a silent, white-gloved elevator operator. No glittering marble, no gold trimmings, just quiet, enduring quality. An elderly maid led them to a sunlit sitting room where Mrs. Kapoor waited in a wheelchair, her sari crisp but decades out of fashion. The clerk's training kicked in, he bowed slightly and opened the case. Rajesh elbowed him sharply. Too late, he noticed the oxygen tube tucked behind Mrs. Kapoor's ears, the tremor in her hands. This wasn't a sales call. Same as last time, beta? Rajesh asked softly, kneeling beside her. Without waiting for an answer, he fastened the necklace for her, then held up a hand mirror. Mrs. Kapoor touched the pearls with skeletal fingers. For my granddaughter's wedding photo, she whispered. So she knows I was there. The clerk's breath caught. This wasn't jewelry. It was a family heirloom in the making. Stop 2, the walk-up flat. The next address led to a crumbling neighborhood where laundry fluttered between buildings. A sweaty climb to the 4th floor revealed a harried young mother. You're late, she snapped, bouncing a crying baby on her hip. Then she saw the clerk's face and froze. Recognition flashed between them, she'd been in the store last month. The one he'd ignored until she slammed her purse on the counter. Now, she eyed him with cold triumph as Rajesh handed over a small box. Your husband's watch repair, ma'am. The clerk stared at his shoes as she signed the receipt. The baby's chubby hand batted at his uniform sleeve. Sorry, he mumbled. The woman snorted. You will be. She shut the door in his face. The realization. Back in the van, Rajesh finally spoke. That watch? Belonged to her father-in-law. Only thing she inherited after the funeral. He started the engine. We've cleaned it for free every year since 1998. The clerk watched the neighborhood blur past. All this time, he'd thought he was grading customers by their worth. Turns out, the store had been serving lifetimes of stories he'd been too blind to see. Final delivery. At sunset, they pulled up to a familiar building, the jewelry store's own back entrance. The owner stood waiting, her shadow long in the golden light. Well? She asked. The clerk opened his mouth, then closed it. No polished speech could fix what he'd done. Instead, he held out the delivery log, every signature, every receipt accounted for. She studied it, then him. Tomorrow, you'll work the morning shift. With the discount jewelry. It wasn't his old position. But it was a start. As he walked to the bus stop, the clerk realized something. For the first time, he was actually looking forward to seeing who'd walk through the door tomorrow. The morning shift bell chimed as the clerk took his place behind the discount jewelry counter, a small wooden booth near the store entrance, far from the main showroom's glittering displays. The other sales staff glanced his way but said nothing. He adjusted his name tag, the polished metal cool against his fingers. First customer, the teenage boy. A lanky teenager shuffled in, his sneakers scuffed, his hands shoved deep in his pockets. He lingered near the discount counter, eyes darting between the glass cases. The clerk recognized that look: nervousness, embarrassment. He'd seen it before on customers he'd dismissed. But this time, he stepped forward. "Can I help you find something?" The boy hesitated, then pulled out a crumpled wad of cash, mostly small bills, held together with a rubber band. "I need a birthday gift. For my mom." The clerk didn't reach for the expensive catalog. Instead, he pointed to a simple silver bracelet under the glass. "This one's on sale. And we can engrave it for free." The boy's shoulders relaxed. "Really?" As the clerk filled out the order form, he noticed the boy's cracked phone screen, the faded backpack. This wasn't just a sale. It was someone's hard-earned love. The unexpected ally. During his lunch break, the clerk sat alone in the staff room, flipping through the engraving catalog. A shadow fell across the table. The shy sales associate, the one he'd once mocked, stood there, holding 2 cups of tea. She slid one toward him. "You handled that well," she said quietly. He stared at the steaming cup. "I should have been doing this all along." She sat down. "You know why the owner put you at the discount counter?" He shook his head. "Because that's where the real stories are." She sipped her tea. The widow buying her late husband's favorite chain to wear close to her heart. The college student saving up for a promise ring. The father getting his daughter's first earrings. She met his eyes. "You used to judge them before they even spoke. Now you're finally listening." His throat tightened. She was right. The owner's test. Near closing time, the owner appeared at his counter. Without a word, she placed a small velvet box in front of him. Inside was a delicate gold locket, slightly tarnished. "A customer will come for this tomorrow," she said. "I need you to clean it and prepare the paperwork." He nodded, but as he examined the locket, he noticed something, a tiny inscription inside, nearly worn away: "For my light in dark days." "This is priceless?" The owner arched an eyebrow. "Yes. But not because of the gold." She turned to leave, then paused. "Oh, and the customer?" "She's blind. So you'll need to describe it to her properly." The challenge hung in the air. This wasn't about polishing metal. It was about seeing what really mattered. The real work begins. That night, the clerk stayed late, carefully cleaning the locket under the lamplight. He practiced describing it aloud: the weight, the texture, the way the hinge clicked softly. He even researched how to verbally explain jewelry to visually impaired clients. As he locked up, he caught his reflection in the store window. For the first time, he didn't see a salesman. He saw a student. And tomorrow's lesson would be the hardest yet. The shop's opening bell hadn't even finished chiming when the blind customer arrived. A woman in her 60s, her silver-streaked hair neatly braided, tapped her cane along the floor tiles with practiced ease. The clerk's pulse quickened. The locket he'd prepared sat in its velvet box under the counter. The art of seeing without sight. "Welcome to," he began, then stopped. Did she need to hear the store's name? Would describing the decor help? His training hadn't covered this. The woman tilted her head. "You must be new. Usually Rajesh greets me by now." Something about her wry smile steadied him. "I'm learning. How can I assist you today?" She extended a hand, palm up. "My locket. Is it ready?" As he placed the box in her hands, his rehearsed descriptions fled his mind. Instead, he found himself saying, "It's warmer than you'd expect. The gold absorbs heat, holds it like a living thing. Her fingers traced the locket's surface, pausing at the hinge. You fixed the catch. Yes. It opens smoothly now, listen. He guided her thumb to press the clasp. A soft snick filled the air between them. She brought it to her ear, shaking it gently. The faintest rustle sounded from within. You didn't empty it. I wouldn't dare. He leaned closer without thinking. There's a lock of hair inside. Reddish brown. Like cinnamon in sunlight, she finished. A tear tracked down her lined cheek. My daughter's. From her first haircut. The clerk's breath caught. This wasn't just jewelry. It was a mother's frozen moment. The interruption. The door burst open. A familiar diamond-laden socialite marched in, her designer heels clacking like gunshots. Darling. There you are, she called to the clerk. I need my emeralds reset immediately for the gala. The blind woman stiffened. Every muscle in the clerk's body remembered his old routine: flatter the big spender, secure the commission. But the locket's weight in the woman's hands anchored him. Mrs. Oberoi, he said without turning, my associate at the main counter will assist you. Silence. Then an incredulous huff. The socialite stormed off. The blind customer exhaled slowly. You've got grit, boy. No, he swallowed hard. Just better teachers now. The owner's approval. Unseen by either, the store owner observed from her office doorway. She didn't smile. But the way her knuckles relaxed around her cane spoke volumes. The revelation. As the clerk completed the paperwork, the blind woman lingered. How long have you worked here? 4 months. Though I've only really been here for about 2 weeks. Her laugh lines deepened. Funny how that happens. She pocketed the locket. Tell me, do you know why this store survived when others folded? He glanced at the owner's shadowed figure. Because she never forgets what matters. Close. The woman stood, cane tapping. Because she remembers who matters. With that, she left, but not before brushing the owner's shoulder in a way that suggested decades of friendship. The lesson takes root. That evening, as the clerk polished the counters, the shy sales associate approached. Mrs. Oberoi demanded you be fired. He winced. The owner told her to take her business elsewhere. The associate grinned. Then she asked me to give you this. A small box. Inside, a simple key. Back office privileges, the associate explained. Where we keep the real inventory. For the first time since his demotion, hope bloomed in his chest. Not because he was climbing back up, but because he'd finally learned what up truly meant. The back office key felt heavier than it should have. The clerk stood outside the plain wooden door, hesitating. This wasn't just another room, it was the heart of the store, a place he'd never been deemed worthy to enter before. Taking a deep breath, he turned the key. The hidden ledger. The office smelled of aged paper and sandalwood. Neat shelves lined the walls, but what caught his eye was the massive leather-bound book on the desk. Gold letters stamped on the cover read, Our People. Flipping it open, he expected sales records. Instead, he found stories. Mr. and Mrs. Patel, 25 years of trust. Their daughter's wedding necklace was made from Mrs. Patel's original dowry gold. Young Ariv, saved for 3 years to buy his mother's 50th birthday earrings. Gave him 40% discount from my own pocket. Owner's note. Page after page of handwritten entries, some decades old. Not transactions, relationships. A noise made him look up. The owner stood in the doorway. I didn't mean to pry, he stammered. You were meant to find that, she said simply. Come. We have work to do. The crisis. That afternoon, a distraught couple rushed in clutching a broken heirloom necklace, the husband's grandmother's peace, shattered during their house move. "It's not even the value," the wife wept. "It's the only thing we have left of her." The clerk examined the delicate gold links. "This will take a week to repair properly." "We leave for Canada tomorrow," the husband interrupted. "Immigration visa expires." The owner watched silently from her usual post by the cash register. Testing him. The clerk's mind raced. Overnight repairs meant calling in retired craftsmen, paying triple overtime. The job would cost the store more than the necklace was worth. Then he remembered an entry from the ledger: "Sometimes the books must bleed for what's right." "We'll have it ready by morning," he heard himself say. The couple's stunned gratitude burned hotter than any commission he'd ever earned. The full circle moment. Near closing time, an elderly man shuffled in, his worn suit neatly pressed but fraying at the cuffs. He approached the discount counter with the same hesitant posture the clerk himself had once dismissed. "Can I see that simple gold band?" the man asked, pointing with a trembling finger. The clerk didn't reach for the tray. Instead, he pulled up a chair. "Of course, sir. Would you like some chai while we look?" As the old man sipped the steaming tea, his story emerged: a retired schoolteacher, buying his late wife's birthday flowers every month until his pension ran thin. Now he wanted something permanent to place at her grave. The clerk's hands didn't shake as he wrote up the sale. Not when he applied the 70% family discount the owner had quietly authorized. Not when he packaged the ring with a velvet pouch they usually reserved for diamond clients. Only when the old man grasped his hand with both of his, eyes glistening, did the clerk feel the sting in his own. The revelation. After locking up, the owner motioned him to her office. She opened a small safe and withdrew a familiar velvet box, the one that had started it all, containing the jewelry she'd tested him with months ago. "You've earned this," she said, pushing it across the desk. Inside wasn't the original piece, but a simple silver name tag. Assistant manager. When he looked up, shocked, she shook her head. "Not because you've learned to sell. Because you've learned to see." Epilogue, 1 year later. The bell chimed as a well-dressed woman entered the bustling store. A new clerk, young, polished, a little too confident, glanced at her modest handbag and turned back to his wealthier-looking clients. From his new post by the manager's desk, the now assistant manager caught the exchange. He smiled, straightened his silver name tag, and walked toward her. "Welcome," he said warmly. "What brings you in today?" Because the best lessons aren't taught. They're passed on.